Welcome, everybody. My name is Ryan Ben. I am the Director of Association Experience here at IIDA headquarters in Chicago, Illinois. And I'm excited to have you as a part of our webinar program. The 2021 IIDA student mentoring session is over. So what's next? I'm excited to have 5 incredible panelists with me today. Before we get to them, I want to share with you some important dates. The Wilson Art Essay Competition is going to be closing in a couple of days. It is a 500-word essay about your experience mentoring. Folks just have to have participated in our 2021 virtual mentoring program in order to submit, and those submissions do close on May 21st. So if you're watching this and you haven't written an essay about your virtual mentoring experience yet, please do so. We'd love to hear from you. It includes an incredible prize, and we would just absolutely love to see your submission. So I want to get right into our panel program today, discussing what folks should do this summer as they look for their new internship or job. And so I want to begin to welcome each of our panelists. I'm going to have them introduce themselves and share a little bit about themselves. Sarah, I want to start with you. Can you introduce yourself to our attendees?
Sure, thanks for having me. I'm Sarah Abels. I am a senior furniture specialist at Corgan in Dallas. I am also the VP of Campus Centers for our Texas, Oklahoma chapter for IIDA. I'm from Corsicana, Texas. It's a very small town about an hour south of Dallas, and I went to school at the University of North Texas for my interior design degree. So it's a little bit about me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Chidima, can you introduce yourself and share with everybody a little bit about your background?
Hi, everyone. My name is Chidima Abuka. I currently work at Gensler at the Newport Beach office in California, and I am the sustainability specialist.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Chidima, you gave me so much information about your experience, and it didn't fit on the PowerPoint. I'm just saying it out loud, just so you know. There was so much. Just put it in the chat, maybe, is what I wanted to do.
No worries.
Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Alex, can you join us and introduce yourself to everybody attending?
Absolutely. Thanks, Ryan. Hey, everybody. I'm Alexandra Bonner. I am a project interior designer at FC Architects here in Philadelphia, West Philly, born and raised. So fortunately enough to work and live where I'm from. I attended the Cleveland Institute of Art, where I received my BFA, and then I went on to get my Master's of Science in Interior Architecture from Jefferson University.
Awesome. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. Zane, can you come on and introduce yourself to everybody?
Thanks, Ryan, for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm Zane Land. I'm originally out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I now live in the San Antonio area. I've been with Wilson Art for a really long time, 33 years. So I'm probably the oldest one on this panel for sure. I am the Wilson Art specifications rep. So I call on designers and architects and try to educate them about our products.
So thank you for being here, Zane, and thank you to you and all of your peers for always supporting our student mentoring program and our essay contest. So thank you. Last but certainly not least, Nicole, can you join us and introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Ward. I'm an interior designer with NBBJ out of their Boston studio. I am also the VP of Student Affairs with our New England chapter, and like many others, I was born, educated, and raised in New England, so haven't gone far.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nicole. We really appreciate it. So I've got a couple of questions for us to kind of get the conversation started, and then we're going to get into what we promised attendees, which was a distilled down list of 10 tips, tricks, and ideas we thought we could give students for their upcoming summer. But the first question I just want to ask all of you is, when thinking about entering this profession this summer, I think it's going to look very different, but I imagine there's also going to be some things that are the same. And so I kind of want to ask each of you to maybe just think out loud about what you're imagining might be the same for students as they enter the profession this year and what might be different. Nicole, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think, with everything being very remote over the last year, I think many companies are kind of looking at the return to work and what that means, and whether that's a hybrid model or where you're still remote or at home. So that you might still see a little bit of that, where I know some schools were also in a hybrid model. I do think that from an interview standpoint, there's probably a lot more remote interviews. But I think at least that's what I've been seeing and hearing.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful to hear. Chidima, what are you seeing right now? What do you think is going to be the same for people and what might be different?
In addition to what Nicole said, I think a lot of people are, obviously, we've been without a lot of interactions. So people are kind of moving more towards, like Nicole said, the hybrid. So I think it will continue to be a blend, but at the same time, there may be opportunities where there would be in-person interaction, but maybe not with a lot of people there. It looks like we're kind of gravitating more towards where we're getting to the summer, people are getting vaccinated. So for that reason, people are seeing if there are, experimenting on how can we meet in person. So I would say, like in the Gensler office, for example, we're already slowly pioneering getting people physically back into the office, and that will trickle into, how will schools react? Will, if it's hybrid, can we have people come in person? So there'll be really unique opportunities first of a lot of different things. It will be very interesting to see how, summer, fall would, interpret into all of that.
Yeah, I really appreciate that positivity. Thank you for sharing that. Zane, you called yourself out for the 33 years. So this will be using your
Definitely has
long
changed.
experience. What do you think?
No, it's definitely, and I think I'm the only rep on this panel, but it has changed definitely for us. We've had a pivot through this whole thing, and Wilson Art has done very good in training us to do so. But used to, we could go in and talk to designers and architects about our products. And now, since the COVID, we now do everything virtually, which is very difficult sometimes to show a product. Now we discuss it on, virtually, and then we send the samples on. So we've pivoted a lot, and we've adapted. And now, on a positive note, we are starting to see things changing out there. We're getting back into the firms. Everybody's feeling a little bit more comfortable. So we're getting to get in and visit with people. So like the lady said before, a lot of them are hybrids. It'll be in some days and out some days. And so just got to work with it. And I think it's all going to be fine in the end.
Yeah, it's really helpful, I think, to start our conversation today with some of this information, because I am hearing from students that they're worried about how unique this summer will be. But I kind of think every summer, every year presents some incredibly unique challenges. And I think it might be comforting for people to watching the webinar to know that everyone is kind of still figuring this out together. There's not necessarily as big of a gulf between our understanding of how to approach this summer, if you've been in the industry for 33 years or just starting out. Sarah, I want to jump to you, and I want to kind of hear what skills are you anticipating students will need this summer as they might approach that first internship or get that first job?
I think, based on what everyone was saying, how things are hybrid, soft skills will be really, really important. Everything's been virtual for the past year. So being able to communicate clearly, listen clearly, interact with people, with your clients, with your coworkers, and just really developing those interpersonal skills would be important. It's so easy to just turn off your camera and not listen in meetings and walk away from your computer. So I think just really engaging again in person is going to be important.
That's awesome. Yeah, Alex, I know you put yourself in a mentorship role a lot in your community. What are you telling students right now? What do you think that they need for skills and expertise?
Yeah, sure. Well, first I will say, if you're playing pandemic bingo, Zane mentioned pivot twice. So if you want to place your chips there, keep an eye out for some of the other buzzwords. But I agree with Sarah saying in terms of the virtual element being super important. I know people who are self-identified as introverts are thriving right now. So there might be an opportunity for students that are a bit more shy to feel more gentle as they approach the industry. But computer skills are super, even basic computer skills like Zoom and Blue Jeans and Teams and all the different platforms that everyone's going to that are serving as the interface of companies are going to be a skill that is important for you to have. And definitely presentation and communication, stay up on your technology skills in terms of Revit and Photoshop and all of the Adobe Suite programs, because we're relying more and more on accurate virtual elements to communicate with. We're all sketching, and if you know how to annotate on Zoom, you are already kicking it, because people don't realize that that's an option. So keeping up on all of those skills, even if you are in between jobs, staying sharp on your virtual skills.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. And next time, Alex, maybe you could help annotate our way through that bingo board, because I think that would have been really helpful. I just didn't even think of that before the webinar started. We should have done that. It's definitely the age of introverts. I couldn't agree with that more. The last question I kind of want to get into before we get into our tips are expectations for students. This summer might be unique in some ways and universal in others, but what are some of the expectations going to be for students when they get, virtually arrive on their first day or in person arrive on their first day during an internship or job this summer? Chidima, I want to start with you.
Yeah, we're all in this together, right? So we're all trying to figure this out. So I think I would want to advise students to definitely just take a deep breath, because everyone is in the same boat where we're trying to figure out what would work and how. One of the examples I wanted to share, in case most people are not aware, is like at Gensler, we're doing a fellowship program this time instead of our standard internship. So we definitely value students, and we wanted to definitely have a way to have students still participate and get them ready for the next steps. So just communicating how you're feeling, how things are going. A lot of companies have buddy programs. And if they don't, you can always ask, like, is there someone I could always ask to show me around or tell me things, because that already would really solve a lot of issues and a lot of anxiety. And I totally understand those who are introverts, like, what do you say and what? But if you know that there's someone who is prepared to help you work through it, and who is responsible for answering and helping you navigate through things, it really makes things a lot easier. So don't feel alone. We're all trying to figure it out. Those of us that have not been working for almost over a year, and those of us that are coming and you're an intern, we're doing it all together. So you're just fine.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate that. I'm sure it'll come up again, but it's really nice to hear that. Nicole, from your position both at NBBJ and also as the student affairs person for your local chapter, what are you telling students to get ready for the summer?
I think one of the things that I try and tell students is, you're not going to know everything the day you walk in. And so, don't be afraid to ask questions. And I know that, oftentimes I can just use an example. We just had a new intern come on, and, they're getting introduced to upwards of 50 people on a Zoom call. And that can be just as anxiety ridden as meeting them all in a staff room in the office. So I think just don't be afraid to put yourself out there, and we're all, like Chidima said, like, we're all in it together, and we all want to support you in the same way. So we've all been there too, as students.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Most of the people I've met in the design industry have a very long memory. They did not forget what it was like to do this exact same thing 10, 15, or 33 years ago. So I want to get into our 10 tips. So we promised attendees that we would give them 10 tips for their internship and job search. So I want to start that right now. Our first tip is something I would love to hear from Zane about, getting involved. What do you mean by that, and what do you think that means?
What I mean by getting involved meaning volunteering with, I know that IIDA is big in my area, but you can also be involved in like AIA, different A&D organizations within your area or the area you'd like to intern or work for. They generally have, once a month. Now with COVID happening, and we're finally getting over that, they were generally having events once a month, and these organizations put on regular that you can participate and meet in. You can volunteer at those events. Usually at those events, you'll find designers, other reps, contacts who can possibly help you in the job search. I know with this ID mentoring program is a great first step, and if you can get involved, I think most of the people on this group have gone through this program. If you haven't, sign up. I know a lot of people, a lot of students want to ride with or mentor, be mentored by a designer. But in my case, just kind of remember what I do. I'm an architectural rep. I call on designers and architects. And, you know, when I have some students shadow me, I usually ask them who they want to go visit with. And I can generally get you into any design firm or architectural firm that you want to. So get involved any program that IIDA or any of the other places or organizations have. I would strongly recommend getting involved in that. You meet a lot of people. I know my student that rode with me, a couple of them actually. One of them went to a firm that he really wanted to go to, took him in there. When it was time for him to find a job, he had an interview, they remembered him. And he actually still works there today. So, you know, get involved in the different programs that are in your area, the areas that you want to work or intern at.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Zane, thank you so much for sharing that, the rep perspective. When we do this program every year, and there are often students who I think don't see the forest through the trees, so to speak, when it comes to that kind of opportunity, especially as a junior or a senior. You know, being with one firm one day is awesome. Going to maybe potentially see 10 or 15 is even awesomer. So definitely try and take advantage of those folks in your area. Chidima, when we talked about this in advance of the program, you kind of mentioned parallel opportunities. What do you think? What does that mean for you?
You know, parallel opportunities are everywhere within our community. The community is aching for people to help them out. So I think about Habitat for Humanity as an example of in one way or another that you can get involved. You have your religious organization that need someone to come and help them think of a better way to make the environment better. A lot of the, some places, some people on this call may be familiar with VBS, which is like Vacation Bible School. They have people build out places and help them with a theme for the summer. So there are places that you can get involved, because any type of volunteer opportunity is always good. It shows that you're dedicated and you care, and you're just going to put yourself in places that pushes you a little bit. So I always recommend going into your community, and you get to know the people that you even live with, where they are. And you don't have to drive far. It could be walking distance. It could be just a 5-minute drive. So it keeps you kind of involved and gets your hands dirty a little bit. So I think that's always a great parallel. So it's still parallel with design, and but even if you did landscaping, it's still a form of design. So no opportunity like that is a waste of time. So it's always a good way to get yourself involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Alex, I'll start with you, and then maybe we can hear quickly from Sarah and Nicole too. But the three of you are chapter leaders, and so we've kind of heard about getting involved in attending events. But for you, what does that mean? I mean, what is your advice to students when they're asking you, how do I get involved? Is it more than just attending? Does it start there? What do you think?
Absolutely, all those parts. I do want to commend Chidima and Zane on both of their advice questions, because that was spot on to what I would say. Definitely getting involved in any way possible. You would be surprised what you find out you have in common with your new bosses. So when it comes to getting involved with IIDA, so I'm the immediate past president for our IIDA Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware chapter. So it does encompass all of those states. But it's tricky now because we're coming off a year with a lot of virtual events, and everyone's got Zoom fatigue and all of that stuff. But we are moving back more into more in-person events. So we are looking for a bit more hands-on deck, people who feel safe and comfortable coming to man tables and things of that nature. And it's just easier to meet people in person than it is virtually. But that being said, at the beginning of all of our virtual events, we do have a networking portion. So there is time to come on screen. It could be a little awkward to be in a room with people you don't know virtually, and then you start talking, but there's opportunities where we do one-on-one sessions and breakout rooms so people can speak in smaller rooms. And it's just about speaking up, introducing yourself, and talking about what you're passionate about and what you're interested in. So we are definitely chapters. I know all the chapters are looking for people to help, especially as I don't know, in our recruitment this year, we've had a bit more of a silent participation input from people. People seem to be a little more hesitant to sign up for things because so many things seem unsure. Maybe they lost employment during the pandemic. So we are looking for more and more volunteer people to get involved. Go on the website for your local chapter and email whomever you're interested in getting involved with, whatever area, whether it's student affairs or professional development, email them and say, hey, how can I get involved? And if you aren't already a student member of IIDA, please sign up and you'll be connected to some student resources right off the bat. Yeah.
Yeah, really appreciate that. Nicole, Sarah, anything to add?
I guess the one thing I would add is, and I think everyone's kind of touched on a lot of it, but especially for those who are graduating and if they're members and looking to get more involved and just meet people, I think taking any networking opportunity you can is going to help you start to make those connections. And, you know, kind of what Alex said, if there's a particular committee or something that you're really passionate about, join. You know, I think as committee leaders and chapter leaders, we want to see, you know, those students and new recent grads get involved just as much. So
yeah, absolutely. I love that. Sarah?
I'll add that, you know, you don't have to have a position on the IIDA chapter or the council, but we're just always looking for new ideas and a voice. So always email your local council members and chapter members for IIDA. And if you have ideas, we'd love to hear it. We love to work with you guys, whether you're students or new grads. You know, most of us are working full time and also doing IIDA stuff as a volunteer. So any help we can get is very appreciated.
Yeah, that's really helpful to hear. And I would just add, you know, you can always reach out to us here at headquarters if you need that help getting connected with whoever your community is locally. We would be more than happy to help you. Let's talk about research. Chidima, I want to start with you. This advice of doing your research, what does that mean for you? What are you trying to tell students?
Okay, so before I even answer that question, I do want to say that I am on the local chapter board as sponsorship chair, and I'm also on the Southern California board as VP of professional development. So, but again, like you said, Ryan, too many things, you can't fit it all in, right? So totally okay.
You fell off the edge. So I thank you for correcting me. I appreciate it.
No worries. Do you know what? It's funny how we forget to do research on ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. We do research on company, where do we want to work for? However, we forget to do research on ourselves. So while I was going through, I have 2 masters. So while I was going through my second one of the things we did in our leadership class was to do research on ourselves. And this helps you to know where you are, where you stand. What are your qualities? So there's a couple of books that I can always recommend that we read. There's 3 that is right in front of me here. There's one called Leadership. There's one called Leadership Strength Finder. And then there's another called Change Intelligence. And after reading all this book, we were encouraged to do like a SWOT analysis. And that's like, I can teach a class on that one. But you're now doing a SWOT analysis on yourself. What is your strength? What is your weakness? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? And sometimes, as we all know, your strengths could also be your weakness, right? But you're now trying to, what I did, I visually represented that and told my story with visuals and color-coded each one of those 4 things for the SWOT analysis so that I can actually get to see and have a conversation with someone. And once you have this tangible layout, you can take it to someone and go, you know, here are my strengths, my weakness, opportunities. What do you think? Did I miss anything else? And have someone really give you good perspective as to what you just produced. But I think that is important. And like I said, it's like a total class to even go through all of that. But opportunities like we've talked about could be even where you live. What are the opportunities with where you live? What are the threats to what's going on? But what are also the opportunities that have come up? So one of the things I think we talked about when I was mentoring is a new skill you have to come up with is talking to the camera. Like nobody, you know, you didn't think about that. Your stuff is over here, but it's, oh no, it's over there. You know, so it's like, how do you manage all of that and finagle all of that? So it's a new skill that we need to learn. It's an opportunity. So again, just being able to visually represent yourself and talk through talking points and also talking to the camera is a skill that you now have to come up with. And when you're presenting, you can do it live and make changes when people give comments. So I thought it was really interesting. Just doing a SWOT analysis on yourself really does help you really navigate yourself where you are and where you're trying to go. I think that really does help.
Yeah, I really, I love that advice. It's the next slide too. But before we get to it, because I want to hear a little bit more about that idea, Zane, can you talk, we heard about internal research, external research, what are you suggesting to students doing in that regard?
So what I would suggest, and that was great advice. I love it. I'm going to
Great
take
advice.
that. I'm going to use it. Anyway, so as far as doing research, I would research the firms, know what they do, because a lot of the firms, like I call on, they specialize either in like healthcare, hospitality, education, retail, etc. You may want to either specialize or work for a firm that does a little bit of all those. There are some firms that do a little bit of everything, but generally a lot of them, and the designers can probably back me up on that, some of that, they generally specialize. So don't forget to research corporate in-house designers. I know that, you see these big firms out there and everybody knows who they are. But there's a lot of places that have intern or in-house designers, such as hotel chains, restaurant chains, grocery stores, retail chains, all of them developers. They all have, generally the big ones will have in-house designers. So if you feel yourself like there's no jobs out there, don't forget those people. Even Wilson Art, paint companies, tile companies, we all have in-house designers. They're the ones picking our colors. They're the ones picking our products. So don't ever, it's not just firms and architectural firms and design firms. Think about these other types of companies too.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. I want to go to this SWOT analysis moment, and I really appreciate you teeing it up for us, Chidima. Alex, when we were talking before the program, you kind of mentioned applying this same framework, but to your portfolio. What do you mean? Like, what's your advice there?
A lot of times I find that when people are presenting their portfolios at mock interviews, you sometimes put it together during school and you forget what's in there. So in the time where you're in between jobs or doing some researching for companies before you apply for a job, there's plenty of time to go back and rework your portfolio. It's all about having your best pieces speak. First of all, don't put things in your portfolio that you don't like or you don't feel good about, because I've run into that before and students are like, oh, this is here because we had to put this in. Like, definitely either put it on the back or don't have it at all. Only have the things that you feel as though you can speak well about the process and that speak well to your skills as a designer. No one you're interviewing with is going to expect you to know everything. We understand that you're coming from school, and at least a decent person will have a compassion for you coming from school and having that understanding. Using any time you can to go back and pick up the comments you hear during presentations that you don't necessarily have time to pick up while you're still in school. Spend some time getting your projects to a place where you feel good, learning them, learning the order of your portfolio so you can speak as confidently and eloquently as you can about your design process.
Yeah, that's really, really good, helpful advice. I really appreciate it. Sarah, I'm going to tap into you real quick. I know your chapter does a very big student conference every year, and part of that conference is often a portfolio review. I think to Chidima's point, that opportunity at self-reflection presents itself all the time. I think a lot of students are a little nervous to engage in that work. So, what are you telling students when they approach you and they're like, I think my portfolio is not good enough to be reviewed. My portfolio is not good enough to be seen. What's your advice?
Bring whatever you have, always, even if it's incomplete. If you have an opportunity to get in front of someone and show them your work, do that and get all the feedback that you can. And your portfolio is always going to be, even 10 years down your career, a progression. It's never going to be complete. But put in your best work, put in your favorite work, because when you're presenting your portfolio to me or employers and you're not excited about that work, we can see that. And if we don't see the passion, then, we are likely not going to hire you. So we want to see that passion. We want to see you guys excited about your designs and what you want to do with your career. And I can put this in the chat, but Strengths Finders, Chidima mentioned it. There's a free version of that. It's called the High Five test. So I would highly recommend you guys, students, everyone taking it, because it shows you your top 5 strengths and it puts a word to that. So my top strength is responsibility. So my team knows that I'll get it done. If they give me a task, I'll figure it out. I'll get it done. I'm very responsible, apparently. So says the test. But yeah, I think just being aware of those things, and you'll know how to talk that up in your portfolio and while you're interviewing too.
That's great, great, great advice. I really appreciate our ability to kind of build on what Chidima set us up with. Our next point is about knowing some current affairs. So Chidima, I'm going to start with you. This was an idea you wanted to share with attendees. Why this idea? What do you think is important about this for designers?
Okay, we all know we get into not just interviews. It's always good to think about that, but just think about it in general. So if you do not know what's going on in the industry, let's say sustainability, since I'm sustainability specialist at Gensler, even if you're not into sustainability, you should be aware, obviously, of the current affairs of how not just the US, but other countries around the world are trying to reduce carbon, for example. So be aware that there is things like the global sustainability goals. There are 17 of them. You don't have to know all of them, but just be aware there's such a thing. Be aware that people are trying to figure out how companies and individuals are contributing to reducing waste and what has been said about that. What in general is going on in the world that is affecting the way we act, the way we live, the way we work. So that when you are in an interview or not, you can have these conversations. You're in the elevator to your interview. And people are like, you're in the industry, right? So you should be able to know these things, not just what you're taught at school. You should be able to have these conversations. And I remember when I was getting my MBA, one of our professors made us to class, you have to bring current conversation, because we'll spend the first 10 or 15 minutes talking about what has currently happened in the financial industry. So if you had 15 minutes, if you had 1 hour or whatever, you need to find out what that is so that you came to class to discuss it. What is going on? Who sold what company is doing what stocks went up, what stock went down, and that kept us with what's the current affairs that is going on. And then we went into what we were discussing for the day. So I think it's important to have those small talks in between things so that you're aware of what's going on, to educate yourself, and so that you can join in on the positive things that are happening in our industry and not be left out.
Yeah, I'm so appreciative of that insight. I think it's really helpful for students. I would add on to it that right now, all of you are positioned to be responding to a global pandemic. And I think that has introduced this idea of thinking about place and space for people that maybe never really thought about it. And so I think what Chidima is saying, and I know the 5 of you all do this really well based on your work as volunteers and chapter leaders and just design professionals, design has a solution for everything. And so I think using this current affairs model and thinking in that way, how could design solve this? How could design assist with this? How could design elevate this community or make this area more inclusive? Like these are all design problems waiting to be solved. And so I really, really appreciate that. I want to go to our next slide here. Keep a list and stay organized. Sarah, this was something you shared with us for attendees. What do you mean? What's the advice here for students?
So I know as you're finding internships or your full-time job, it might get a little hectic with all the places that you're applying to. So keep a list, a spreadsheet of some sort, to understand, okay, I've applied to these 5 companies or firms. I need to follow up with this, and this. Did I send thank you notes or thank you emails to these people? Check that off. Just keeping organized will really help. And especially after, you're going to multiple interviews and things like that too. Make a pros and cons list of each place. If you're seeing yourself leaning more towards one company than the other and you get offers from all 5, that'll really help narrow down the decisions of what you're going to be making. So just stay organized and be prepared for being in that type of situation.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I am thankful to hear you remind students that this is not just a what can I do for you moment. It's a what can they do for us? And staying organized in that way is definitely very valuable right now. Nicole, for you talking with students, I think that this idea resonated with you as well. What is your advice for students on staying organized and maybe keeping a list?
Yeah, I think it's kind of, I'm getting a little background. Maybe it's just me. Okay.
What do you think?
All good. So I think just kind of building off of, as you start to meet people and you're networking, and it kind of built upon that list that like Sarah was mentioning, but I think it's important too to understand that, don't just look to connect with designers. Our industry reps, as Zane started to talk about earlier, are just as important. If anything, they have their fingers on the pulse of who's hiring, maybe more than some of the designers. So the more you can connect with them and get to know even the pros and cons of all of the different, like they might come from it from a different perspective too, that can give you some insights as to, what, I think this firm might be a better fit for me, or that company or role might be a better fit based off my strengths and what my goals are for myself. So I think everything Sarah said, I would completely agree with, and just kind of building upon that as you move forward.
Yeah, that's great advice. I really appreciate it. Staying in regular contact, I think, builds on this idea. And I want to talk a little bit about it. We got a message actually from our Facebook Live audience, and they were wondering, when staying in regular contact, you're applying for jobs, you're applying for internships, and you're not getting responses. And so I want to kind of pitch to all of you this idea of like, how do you get someone to respond back, especially right now as we're virtual and we're all working so much? What do you all think about that? What advice would we have for that person?
That's a tricky one, because you definitely want to walk the fine line between being assertive and being like annoying. I mean, the benefit about being behind an email is that you're not necessarily in the person's face. So there's that. If there's another opportunity, if there's another person you can go through at the company that could help to send something along. I mean, I always recommend to people, when you're going to apply for a job, just ask if anybody knows anybody there, because it does help to have, even if you don't personally know them, if your friend knows somebody or if a previous employer knows somebody, if there's like a name you can attach to an email, or you reach out and say, hey, I just submitted my stuff to your HR. Could you reach out on my behalf and see if they received it? Because there's not really much you can do to make anybody respond. Even putting like a passive read receipt on there is not necessarily going to get you the results you're looking for. But then sometimes the squeaky wheel gets oiled, like I remember when I applied for my first job out of grad school, I was close to harassing the person that I was reaching out to, because I was wanting so badly to work for them. And in the end, it did work out in my favor, but I ended up having a professor who also advocated on my behalf that finally got the email paid attention to, for lack of a better term. So it's just like walking the fine line, always staying professional, and then seeing if there's somebody else you can find that can work as an advocate for you.
Yeah, I think that that's really good advice. Nicole, what are your thoughts?
I guess to the point of, like Alex was saying, it's kind of this fine line, but definitely don't do a one and done reach out, because I think oftentimes, as designers or, industry leaders, our day might be really busy and we may not read your email for a couple of days. So if you don't hear from us on the first try or the second try, definitely continue to reach out and, just say, hey, like circling back or something like that.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we're not ignoring you. We just haven't gotten to the email yet.
Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. Zane, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Please. It also goes back to research. Sorry, make sure you're emailing the right person, because if their website says for employee inquiries, email John Bob, and you're emailing somebody else excessively, like you need to email John Bob. So do the research and make sure contacting the correct person that may help in the results.
No, yeah, that's really good. And I think I had John Bob on my bingo sheet, so that actually helps me out. So thank you. I appreciate it. Zane, I was going to put you on the spot because I imagine the nature of your work would make you very good at this. So how are you staying in regular contact with your community of designers?
Well, it is hard because everybody's getting bombarded with a lot of emails. Can we do presentations? Can we do this? Can we do that? So the only thing I can suggest is how I do it is just, as long as you're nice about it, not aggressive about it, which, a lot of times people are inquiring about my products or they have samples or stuff like that. So there's a lot of times I can get away with saying hello or this, that, and the other. But like Alex said, or Nicole maybe said earlier, when I first went out and looked for a job, you just have to be persistent, and you can be persistent in a nice way. And that's how I got on with Wilson Art. I called them probably weekly. They weren't hiring, but finally, maybe, I don't know, I can't remember. It's been 33 years, but you just persistence in a nice way. That shows that you're eager to go work for them. I mean, I really wanted to get on with Wilson Art, and I think they really knew it. So I just persistence, but yeah, it's changed for me with Wilson Art. I have a little bit of it in because a lot of people are needing my samples. Sometimes they have to call me, but as far as, I just am persistent, and you can't get your feelings hurt. There's a lot of times I don't hear from people, and I get it, but maybe a month or two later, yeah, that's again, being organized, say, contact them again. And a lot of them will appreciate your persistence as long as you're nice about it.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I would add to from the purview about working at IIDA, I would just add to that some of these ideas aren't things to do when you need them. They're things to be doing all the time. So then when you need them, it's ready to go. I think the 5 panelists are really good examples of some of these lessons and just doing them all the time. And so then if you're in regular contact with people at a certain firm or a certain rep, or you're talking with them and saying hi to them occasionally or seeing them at events, then when you need to follow up on something, it's all of a sudden a lot easier to do that because you're just adding to this conversation that already exists as opposed to prodding somebody to start a new one with you. And I think the 5 panelists really, really represent that. So I just wanted to say that out loud. Seek out school alumni is our next tip rather. And Nicole, you had kind of suggested this. So how do you see students using their alumni network where you are?
Yeah, so I can actually give a personal example. So my first design job out of school, I got through the internship office at our college. So I think, the internship offices, your alumni groups, I think our interior design group, it also has social media groups as well. And you can, reach out and say, hey, like, is anyone hiring? I know in our alumni group on social media, people often post on there like, hey, our firm is hiring or looking for this or that, reach out. And it's just a way to get the word out that people are looking. And so there's opportunities there.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Sarah, what are your thoughts on this alumni work?
Yeah, I think it happens often. I mean, my first 2 jobs out of college, first 1 to 3 years, was from alumni connections who graduated from the program. And going back a little bit to the number 6 of just staying in contact, I think students utilizing the people that are in place through IIDA, student liaisons, your VP of campus centers or student affairs. We're in these positions because we're supposed to help you. That's why we want to be here. So reach out to me, reach out to Nicole. We are both in these positions to do that. For me, it was a 2-year position that I'm currently wrapping up at the end of June, but I was able to make relationships with students and really get to know them. And because they stayed in contact with me, I can easily place them where I think they would fit in jobs. And so when I hear of someone hiring, I reach out to them and I say, hey, so-and-so is hiring. Do you want to apply? I can connect you. So we want to see you succeed. And, I think a lot of professionals want to see you succeed. We want nice, cool, smart colleagues to work with us. So don't be afraid to reach out and utilize those IIDA people as well as your alumni.
Yeah, that's terrific advice. That's really, really great to hear. No fear, no stress is our next tip for everybody. Alex, what does this mean for you? I feel like you embody these two things. So how do you do that? What is your advice?
Um, a lot of things come to my head when I think about this. I'm like Chidima, in addition to my job and my IIDA role, I also am an adjunct professor for Drexel University, and I'm constantly doing breathing exercises. I'm also a certified yoga instructor. So I'm always doing breathing exercises with my students. Like, everybody just needs to chill out, because it's never as serious as you think it is. And I know it's kind of corny and cliche to say, but mental health, if 2020 has taught you anything, please, please, please walk away knowing that your mental health is the best thing that you can have in check, because it doesn't matter if you get your dream job, if you have a stroke at 23 because you're so stressed out about a job search. So take your time. Everything will absolutely happen how it's supposed to happen. Work on getting your credentials together. Slowly coast into things. Don't feel stressed out if your friends are getting jobs or your colleagues, and that one person in your class who was kind of a slacker but really good at kissing butt has a job. That's fine. That's exactly their story and what's supposed to happen for them. Take your time. You have the rest of your life to work, So take the time to really decompress. You're coming off of 12, 14, 16, however many years of school. It's fine to have a little downtime right now.
Yes, I'm watching all six of us just nod our heads over and over again as you were talking. Thank you for saying all that out loud. I think it's especially helpful to hear it right now. Nicole, I think you had some ideas about this too. For you, what does the no fear idea mean?
It's more of I was thinking of it from, students looking to reach out to people, and it can be very intimidating, even on LinkedIn or behind a screen, to email or send a message or connect. And I guess the advice I would give is, it may be intimidating, but just do it. Because I think, oftentimes it's those connections that we create that can help move you the next step. And even if my company might not be hiring, I might know 5 other designers working for companies, or a rep that is looking for someone. So I think, just don't be afraid, put yourself out there and be proactive. We like to see that. So.
Yeah, that's great. Chidima, you told me that it was time for a deep clean for students, that they should take this time to deep clean. What do you mean? I'm assuming it's not the COVID shower haircut.
Maybe we should add that to it, but it's really interesting, because there again, back to looking at yourself and being transparent and being honest with yourself is always a first step. So if you want to clean things out, I'm thinking of maybe there's an email that you've used since you were 16 and that sounded very cute. And that may not work right now with you looking for a job or going into the professional field. So you may want to think of changing something like that to reflect of how you've now become a professional student who is now going into the professional world. So you may need to adjust that. And also, I think one of the things that people are doing and have been doing in the past is having a website so that you can put all your information. Even if you're not ready to do that, I always recommend just going in to see what's available, even if you just want to get that website, that it becomes yours. So when you're ready, you could use it. And trust me, this is something that you can keep for the rest of your life. If you want to keep the website, and even if it's not being used, you can just still own it. So I always encourage people to find a website that also reflects their email address and also reflects who they are. If you've come up with a logo, you may want to clean it out. Maybe you did it years ago and now you want to update it a little bit to reflect where you are. So those are the types of kind of cleaning that you want to do. You want to look at your social media. How do you go and make it reflect of who you are? Look at your LinkedIn. Just know all of these things I'm mentioning, they're all things that are continuously evolving. They're not stagnant. So within a week or 2 or 3, things could change. You get a certification, you want to put it there. You get a new responsibility at your school, or you want to add it there. And then another thing I want to talk about, since we're I'm discussing this, is how we were saying earlier, if no one ever calls you back, there may be certain things that has changed since the time that you turned in your application or your resume. You may be calling for news, not just to say, hey, I've not heard back from you. You could be calling up to say, hey, I've moved closer to your office. Or, I have gained another certification, or whatever it is. I now can type, instead of 30 words per minute, I can now type 150, since we're all staying at home and that's all we're doing all day, So you can totally contact them for just sharing some good news with them. So it doesn't have to be like, give me, I've not heard from you, what's going on. So you can also talk about how you want to contribute some new skills that you've kind of done. So that's all part of the cleaning up part that I was kind of talking about. So
Yeah, that's really, really great. I love that. And the lean in after the move, that look is, that's a power move. That is definitely something for students to hold on to. I want to get to our last slide, but before we do, we have a question that came in that I think a couple of you would be able to answer really well for us. And the question is about, because there might be limited internship openings, there might be limited opportunities this summer, there's not maybe the wealth of chances for students. How can students who are determined to weather this moment and are still really interested in exploring types of commercial design work, how might they do that even if they don't get this internship or don't get this first job? Zane, I thought maybe you could potentially comment on this. Like, how else are you seeing people explore the industry even if they're not necessarily working in it at the moment?
I would only suggest, because we're still doing IIDA stuff, volunteering. There's, you can still meet with, I have no problem with students calling me up or emailing me and chatting, and to kind of rack my brain about who's hiring, because there are people hiring out there. But anything that you can do as far as any contacts that you've made, just reach out to them and don't just get discouraged. And that's, all I can really say about that. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for.
I think it's a great answer, and I definitely appreciate hearing your expertise on it. I would just add on to it what we're about to talk about right now, which is just keep learning. Just keep finding those chances to learn about the industry. So much of what you will learn from an internship or your first job is because of the people you work with, but you can have coffee with those people even if you don't work with them. You can reach out to those people for informational interviews even if you don't land that job. So don't let that thing be the reason you maybe don't continue conversations with them, since you can always continue them. The interior design profession is filled with some of the kindest, gentlest, most intelligent people I've ever met. They really do want you to succeed. To Sarah's point earlier, everybody wants to be around cool, nice people. So if you're cool and nice and you want some more information, reach out to people, because I think that they would be really willing to help you. In addition to that, Sarah, what else do you think we can advise students when it comes to keep learning? How can people continue their education?
Yeah, if you don't get that job or internship this summer, still attend CEUs online or in person if they're offered. Panel discussions like this. I think there's a lot of knowledge coming from this and great panelists who are putting that information out there. LinkedIn, firms and companies are putting out all kinds of research and articles that I think are really interesting, and it helps you keep up with what's going on in the industry and have really good conversations with potential employers later on. But do whatever you can to just stay relevant in the industry. And even if that means just doing a small project in Revit on your own, or doing your own research, I think those things will be great to put in your portfolio and then present later on. And, in the fall and when things start picking back up, you can show that you've kept busy and you just didn't sit there all summer unemployed.
Yes, I think that that's really, really good advice. Alex, I'm going to leave the last word for you. For you, what does it mean to never stop learning? Like, how do you embrace that philosophy? I feel like you do a good job of it. So how do you do it?
Definitely agree with everything that's been said, and it kind of all comes full circle. You're gonna, as a mentee, you'll stay current with your IIDA membership. You'll stay connected to your mentor. You're gonna reach out to your local chapter. Perhaps they have some in-person events going on, so it might even help you gain exposure to other fields. I know we are starting to introduce some walking project tours in our territory, so that's one way you can see hospitality work versus corporate design in person, getting into spaces for tours and things of that nature, and just continuing to be plugged in to all of the various virtual opportunities. And it not only blurs the lines between design sectors, but if you're living in Georgia and you want to maybe go live and work in California, and you can follow the IIDA's chapters in California, you can follow AIA in California, you can attend some of their virtual events and just learn about more of what's happening in terms of design trends, sustainability, and you can educate yourself to make decisions then as well. And then I would also say, consider studying for your LEED or your WELL exams that don't require a certain amount of professional experience before you take them. You can sit for the first part of your NCIQ first out of school, but you have to know that once you pull that trigger, you have like, I think 3 years to finish the exam. So do that with caution if you wanted to go that route. But anything you can do to add letters after your name, to add certification as a bullet point on your resume is definitely worth the time. And stay up on your Revit, Photoshop, like those softer skills. Keep that active as well.
Yeah, that's all awesome to hear. And I would add that, you've heard from the 5 of the panelists that they're in this learning mindset. That means that they're probably would be really excited to learn from you too. So if you're a student, if you have expertise, if you've done some of the work that we've talked about doing, you're on top of a current event or affair, you've learned something new, you've met a new rep in the area that works with Zane that Zane hasn't met yet, whatever it is that you feel like you know that's unique to you, this is a profession that wants to hear about it. Your peers and your soon-to-be collaborators want to learn from you just as much as you might want to learn from them. They're very, very excited to do that. That is going to bring us to the end of our program today. I thought this was an excellent program, so I want to thank Sarah, Chidima, Alex, Zane, and Nicole one more time for all of their time and expertise. We're going to record, we have recorded this, and we're going to send out the recording to attendees, so all of you have a copy of it, and we're going to also make sure it gets posted on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions for us at IIDA headquarters, you can always reach out. Remember that you can still have 2 days to submit for our Wilson Art Essay Contest, and we would love, 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 love to see your essays come in from this virtual experience. Sarah, Chidima, Zane, Nicole, Alex, one more time, thank you all so, so much, and I hope everybody watching has a great rest of their day. Thank you all.